Welcome to this latest edition of the Real Deal podcast. I'm your Cyril Joe Quinn, recording this on a late night Mother's Day Sunday. Hope all the mothers had a wonderful day out there. Certainly, happy Mother's Day to everyone out there, including my own. Um, just hope everybody had a great day. Um, we are going to this is going to be the beginning of a number of NBA podcasts throughout until the finals, running through the finals. So be ready for them. They're gonna be coming fast and furious, starting with this one. And this, of course, is episode 883, and it was a Boston massacre for the Philadelphia 76ers. And that's where we're going to begin. Boston advances to their second straight Eastern Conference Finals, their fifth in 7 years. Defeat taking out the Philadelphia 76ers 112-88. This game was decided in a third quarter where Boston would outscore Philadelphia 33-10. And it started out the third quarter 25, going on a 25-6 run to start out. Philadelphia actually had a lead in this game, believe it or not, a 9-point lead early in midway in the first quarter, and then kind of went back and forth in the second quarter before Boston found this footing. Before I even deal with the Celtic part of this, because the Jason Tatum performance is one of the best Game 7 performances of all time. It just is, like, it without question. I know as a Laker fan, it's hard for me to say anything nice about the Celtics, but look, greatness is greatness. He was spectacular, and not just with the scoring, but just the all around game, his defense, the floor game, no turnovers. So I'll save Tatum and the Celtics for a little bit later. You're gonna hear when it comes to the Sixers, come tomorrow on the radios, the blogs, the internet, Twitter, whatever. You're gonna hear a lot of bashing of two people, James Harden and Doc Rivers. Now, Doc Rivers again lost another Game 7. He is now 6-10 all time in Game 7s. He's only Doc keeps racking up these numbers with these losses. So 6-10 all time in Game 7s. His record in closeout games is like 17-34 all time. Um, James Harden again, 9 points, another no-show in a big game, in a Game 7 or an or elimination game. We've seen a number of those over the course of his Hall of Fame career. I'm not blaming either one of those guys. To be honest with you, the guy who should get the brunt of the blame, the guy who every finger should be pointed at, is number 21, and that is your 2022-2023 NBA MVP, Joel Embiid. Embiid in this game was 5 for 18, 15 points, and 4 turnovers in this game. He was an absolute no-show. He really, in the last two games, I mean, he really didn't do anything in the last two games. You go back to the fourth quarter of Game 6. Um, and I understand that he didn't touch the ball the last 4 minutes, but you are the MVP. You should demand the ball. Like that. That wasn't any excuse. But he was a no-show in the fourth quarter of that game. Had a pedestrian 26-10. 9 for 19, whatever. That's pedestrian for him, for a guy who averages 30, who during the season averaged 33, 10, and 4 over the course of his MVP season. So 26-10 is just not going to cut it. But this game, he was just awful from the start. You would think that a guy who nightly gets double teamed would understand where double team is coming from. And B, some of his turnovers were just, he was getting stripped because he seemingly couldn't read the Celtics double teams. And it's like, again, the Celtics did not toss any, 7-game series. These teams have played 7 times. coming to this game would have played 6 times in the postseason, 4 times. This was the 11th game these teams have played this season. There were no tricks. There were no wrinkles. There was nothing from a X's and O's standpoint that was going to like that you were going to throw at each other where you were gonna fool one another. That just like at this point it's about execution. It's about whose best players are going to step up. And the Celtics' two best players dominated the Sixers' two best players. It's just that simple. It was very much that simple. I mean, this wasn't even a great the six. I mean, but this game, I mean, the Celtics ended up making some threes in that third quarter, but it wasn't even about the onslaught, barrage of 3-point shots. It wasn't even about that. It was about the fact that you have a MVP guy, a guy who's the MVP of the league, a guy who has been, campaigning for MVP for 3 years, coming up short yet again in another postseason where he can't stay healthy, where he is outplayed by the other team's best player, and where he again throws his team under the bus with poor leadership during the post game press conference. That is the total package from Joel Embiid. That is who he is, and I don't see it. I don't ever foresee him being the best player on a team that can win a championship because he mentally doesn't have it. He just doesn't. He just some guys have it mentally, certain guys just don't. He doesn't have it. Whatever that it is to be an all-time great, to be a championship caliber player, to reach that next level from that standpoint of leadership, he doesn't have it. He just doesn't. That game was on a platter. The Celtics in the first half should have been down. If he's average, if he's average in the first half, the Celtics should have been down any 10 to 12 points if he plays average basketball. I mean, you had PJ Tucker making shots early on. So they got they get off your teammates give you a little cushion in terms of getting off to a relatively a good start. But he was nowhere to be found. And again, I'm not blaming James Harden. We know how James Harden moves in these games. And the bottom line, here's the bottom line too, people, before you really go on James, before you point the finger at James Harden. James Harden single-handedly won you 2 games in this. If you're a Sixer fan, James Harden won you 2 games in this series. Won you game 1, the game that Joel Embiid did not play because of injury, and he won you game 4, of course, the game that really changed the complexion of this series, that turned it into that really turned it into a competitive long series. They lose that game, it's 3-1. It's probably bye-bye in 5, more than likely. So he, like James Harden, in essence, did his job. If you're a superstar player, if you are a player that's considered to be an all-time great talent, you have to win at least 1, if not 2 games over the course of a 7-game series. Joel Embiid did not win them 1 game in this series. The other game that they won, the game 5, that to me was a collective effort. Ty Maxey had 30 in that game. Yeah, Embiid had 33 and 7. Played well, but he wasn't the singular reason why they won that game. That was a collective to me. That was a collective effort. Harden played well in that game. Maxey played well in that game. And so did Tobias Harris played well in that game. And the Celtics simply just, shit in their pants, basically. Celtics were awful in that game 5 at home. Inexplicably awful. He didn't win them 1 game in this series. Not 1. And the problem the Sixers have is their 2 leading guys are in essence the same player from a standpoint of not stylistically, but from a standpoint of they are regular season, they are great regular season players who in the postseason are just not going to get it done. Embiid is what Harden was 3 years ago, a dominant regular season player who is going to continuously come up small in the postseason. The difference is at least Harden would stay healthy in the postseason when he came up small. Embiid can't even, Embiid can't even make it through a postseason staying healthy. So at least Harden has some durability, and at least, and by the way, at least Harden was able to get his team to a couple of conference finals when he was with Houston. So that's the difference. But I squarely put this on Joel Embiid. It's not even a question. It's not even a debate to me. Here's what Embiid said at the post game press conference. Me and James can't win alone. That's why basketball is played 5-on-5. That is your MVP. If you're a Sixer fan, that is your leader. That's the guy who you've built your franchise around. And that is a guy who that's not a championship mentality. That's not what you want to hear when in a game seven you've gone 5 for 18, 15 points and 4 turnovers. It's not like that's not what you want to hear. What you want to hear was, hey, I should have played better. I can play better. I'm gonna be on a mission for next season. I still think we can get it done, so on and so on. Not, hey, my teammates aren't good enough, which in essence is what he said. What he said, what he says is me and James can't do it by ourselves. Basically you were throwing the team under the bus. And by the way, the team, so he and Harden go look these numbers here. Uh, I have them here. Harden and Embiid combined to shoot 27% from the field. The rest of their other role players shot 50% from the field. So the role players were actually not the problem in this game. Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum outscored Joel Embiid and James Harden 76 to 24. Think about that. Jason Tatum, and Jaylen Brown outscored Joel Embiid and James Harden 76 to 24. 76 to 24. So that again, I'm not even blaming Harden. Like Harden is who he is at this point in his career. How many times have we seen this out of Harden in a game seven or elimination game? I'm not. I'm really not blaming Harden. I'm not in a real way. This was to me. This was squarely on Joel Embiid. Squarely. I'm not knocking Doc either because and now you want to say Doc could have took the ball out of Tatum's hands earlier, could have double went to some double teams before he got into a rhythm. Okay, sure. But the bottom line is, I can't even knock Doc be for this series because he had to navigate Embiid's injury, and still they got him to a seventh game. So to me, this was about this is about a guy who I just don't think will ever get it. And I just don't think that you're gonna win a championship with him as your best player. I just don't I just can't see it. And they're gonna have some interesting decisions to make in the offseason. If Harden opts out and go, already rumors even middle of the season, there were rumors about him going back to Houston, which would not be a surprise. Harden's gonna go where the money's at, whoever was willing to pay him. If I were the Sixers, I would not pay. I'm sorry, I just would not. I'm not resigning Harden to. I'm not like I'm not trying to like do a sign and trade with Harden. He would not be on the team next year. Like I think he's gonna be 34 years old. He's not gonna get any better. He's gonna get worse as he gets older. He showed some signs during the season. Had a very good season. Had a couple good playoff games. And had a couple good games in this series. But I just he can't be. I don't think Harden. If I don't believe Harden, if Embiid can't be a number one on the championship team, I don't think Harden can't. I don't think Harden can be a second best player on the championship team. I just don't feel that way anymore. So if I'm the Sixers, I would move off him and move in another direction. But they have made that like that team could just this thing could completely just blow up from the standpoint of I could easily see them hard opting out, Doc being fired, and then be just demanding a trade. Those I can easily see that happening easily. And again, you look at the top of this franchise, they're just not. There's not much confidence to have about this franchise moving forward. I'm not believing in Daryl Morey. I'm not believing in him. Not believing in the coach. Not in be just top. Just from the top from the top up. Not believing in this franchise. With that being said, there was enough on this team to win a championship this year. Sorry, this was not. This is not a this the title was wide open this year. It's so wide open this year. There are no dominant teams. None. There are no dominant teams. As talented as the Celtics are, they have a coach who could care less about defense. I mean, Missoula in the press conference they said, well, what was the difference in the second half? He said, well, what was the difference in the second half? Why were you able to break the game over? He says, our offense. Dude, you held the Sixers to 10 points. You held the Sixers to 10 points in the third quarter. In the stretch, there was a stretch where the Sixers didn't score a bucket for like 6 minutes. And he says, our offense. This guy is just obsessed with offense and 3-point shooting. He's like, defense is like, okay. Like, I'm not saying he doesn't care about defense, but I like, everything is about the offense. If we don't play good defense, it's because of our offense. Like I don't. I'm not in love with him as a coach by any stretch of the imagination. It's good to be honest with you, because really this series with Embiid playing the way he played, this series shouldn't even went to 7 games. To be honest with you, missing Embiid missing one, missing game one, being compromised physically for the first couple games, and not having an okay series at best, okay series. This series shouldn't even win 7 games. Harden being up and down. So, I mean, Boston is not this great, you know, all-time team by any stretch. They are very flawed in terms of just, counting too much on a 3-point shot. Um, just from a philosophical standpoint, with I'm just not sold on the coach. And he's still going through his growing pains as a first-year coach. But as far as Philadelphia goes, I think that I think that they're going to take a step back in the future. I don't like. I don't even think they're going to be this good next year. But this good come next year. I can see them taking a couple steps back. I I really thought that they had enough to win a championship this year. I really did, considering where we're at. Um, considering how wacky and wild this postseason has been, and just like everything was breaking right for them. I mean, no Giannis. You look at the chaos in the West, Golden State down a peg, everything that went on with Memphis. Like everything was breaking right for the Sixers to possibly win a championship. So but so if somebody's gonna come and tell me that, and I heard this out of Philadelphia, well, I heard this up from NBA TV. Sam Mitchell saying that they are like 2 players away. I'm like, no, Sam, this roster as currently constructed from a standpoint of talent, they had the talent. It's just they don't have the mindset or the leadership. That's what Philadelphia lacks. It's not about talent. They have a talented team. They don't have the will. They don't have the will. I mean, and it starts with Joel Embiid, James Harden, Doc Rivers, Joel Embiid, James Harden. That's it. Starts in specifically Joel Embiid. He is not a guy that says, "Get on my back, I'm gonna take you home." That's what they needed. They needed a guy. They needed well, first of all, if he was that level of player, it would have ended. He could would have ended the series in 6 games. Because when you go back to that Friday game, or excuse me, that game on Thursday, Tatum has the explosive fourth quarter or 3 or 4 minutes, but the Celtics couldn't hit the side of the barn in that game. The Celtics did not play well at all in that game. You allow them to, they scored 95 points. That's a game at home that you have to win. And that's a game where your best player doesn't even allow this to get back to Boston. From a Celtic perspective, the Tatum performance is one for the ages. You're talking 51, 13, and 5, no turnovers. Keep in mind, in that first half, if he doesn't, if he has a average half, they're down anywhere from 12 to 15 points. Celtics were not playing well, minus him in that first half. They were not. They were five. They were like 5 for 16. They were not making threes at half. They had made only 5 of 16 from the 3 point line. He kept them in that game to a point to where they were tied at half. He single handedly kept them in that game until everybody else got on board in that third quarter and Philadelphia kind of came apart. So they needed every one of those 25 points in the first half of that game. And you're talking about in a game 7, going for 51 to 13, following the fourth quarter he had with the 16-point fourth quarter that he had after coming into that fourth quarter with only 3 points. Listen, I there and I said I tweeted this. There are only 3 other players in the league that I would start my franchise off before I would start my franchise with Jason Tatum: Giannis, the Joker, and Luka. Those are the only 3 guys. If I'm starting a franchise today, those are the only 3 guys that I would take over Jason Tatum as far as starting the franchise. Because he's not going to be afraid of the moment. He's not like I think is a legit top 7 to 8 player in the league. And he's only 25 years old. As people forget, he's only 25 years old. He can get better. And all they've done is win with him. All he's done. He and Jalen Brown is playing big games. Like I said, this is their 4th conference finals as a duo. The Celtics' 5th conference finals overall in the last 7 years. So more years than not, they're good. They're almost automatic to go to the conference finals. So his performance, again, it's one of those performances that if you're a Boston fan, you will never forget about. And look at the last 2 seasons. In the last 2 seasons, in the conference semifinals, when they had to have it, when they had to have a performance to save their season, he gave it to them. Last year, it was Game 6 in Milwaukee. He goes for 46. This year, it's the Game 7. Well, really, I can tell you, it's Game 6, fourth quarter. He saves their season, even though he was bad the first 3 quarters, but he, was the difference in the fourth quarter. And Game 7, he was, just spectacular in Game 7. It was just one of those virtuoso performances that I'm sure Celtic fans will remember forever. And again, you have to remember he's only 25 years old. So I think that there have been times, even this happened during the finals, where we put a when he doesn't play well, it says, well, he's not on that level. Well, you know, there's only a handful of guys that are better than him right now. They're only about 4 or 5 guys. You want to say Giannis is better? Clearly, yes. The Joker better? Yes. Uh, Steph Curry? Yes. That's about it. Like you're taking Devin Booker? No, sorry, I wouldn't take. I wouldn't take him. I wouldn't take Devin Booker over him, despite how well Devin Booker played in the playoffs this year. Kevin Durant, will I take Kevin Durant over him right now? No. Sorry. I'm not. Not right now. Not with the durability issues that Kevin Durant has. No. I'm not taking Kevin Durant over Jason Tatum. So who else are we talking about here? We're talking about only about 3 or 4 players that that you can say are clearly better players than him. Joel Embiid was MVP, first team All NBA. I'm taking Joel Embiid over Jason Tatum. No, sorry, I'm not doing it. No, no, no. So there, like I said, that list of players who you would take over Jason Tatum is very short, a lot shorter than people realize. To be honest with you, a lot short. So you had over since we last spoke over the weekend. We had Golden State joining Phoenix as teams that have been put out of their misery, so to speak, in the Western Conference to set up a Denver LA showdown rematch of the 2020 bubble. And these are two franchises that are in very and have some a lot of decisions to make and have are very interesting positions. Now let's deal with the big news. Obviously, in regards to Phoenix, is they need a new coach. Monty Williams was let go. You have this new owner who clearly just doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. He just doesn't. He's a new owner. He wants to make a big splash. We find out that he was the one that negotiated, was the drive, was the driving force behind the Kevin Durant trade. James Jones at this point, I don't know why he's keeping James Jones on, because it seems like James Jones has, had his basically been emasculated by this dude from the standpoint of he's not doesn't have any real power anymore. So I'm surprised they kept James Jones. So they are a disaster, because what happens with these new owners is they become this team. They buy a new team. They get a new team. They're trying to make a splash. They're trying to impress friends. They have no clue what they're doing, and this guy has no clue what they're doing, because if he did, he would know that Mike Williams was not the problem on that Phoenix team. He's just not. That Phoenix team roster was limited once they made the trade for Kevin Durant. The DeAndre Ayton thing never kind of festered over the course of the season. That never got rectified. And that was the one thing, if you're gonna knock Monty Williams for anything, his handling of that situation from last year on, he didn't handle that well. Um, when you hear stories that they didn't speak the entire offseason, you as a coach, you're one of the leaders on that team. You have to fix that, because like you need this guy to for you to get to where you need to be if you were going to try to compete for a championship. Now it could be that DeAndre Ayton is just has a ceiling, and his ceiling is going to be 17-10 or 17-11, and he's not going to be a difference maker, and he's not going to be one of the best big men in the league. That is probably what his ceiling is. To be honest with you, I'm not as high on DeAndre Ayton as a lot of people are, especially from Phoenix. I mean, Eddie Johnson thinks DeAndre Ayton is going to be should be the second coming of of the next great big man. I just don't see it. But it was when you get dominated in back-to-back elimination games, um, in back-to-back seasons, you lose by 30 to a Dallas team, not a great Dallas team, a pretty good Dallas team at home in a game 7. Then you lose by 25 at home to a very good but not great Denver team. Denver's very, very good. They're not a great team in an elimination game. Then someone's got to go. Someone's going to pay for that. Unfortunately, it had to be Monty. But again, I think that there were just more internal issues with that franchise than Monty Williams, and I think that I just don't think those guys like each other, and then to me that begins with DeAndre Ayton and the players really not messing with him like that and not believing in him like that. And that, again, they should have probably moved DeAndre Ayton in the offseason last year. They should have probably moved him in the offseason last year. Ultimately, I think they're going to end up doing. uh Monty Williams a favorite because again, I don't like. I I don't see what Phoenix can do in terms of that roster. Like, yeah, you can trade DeAndre Ayton. How much value does he have right now? To be honest with you, I mean, how much value does he have? Chris Paul is going to be a year older, and his now again. To me, I would try. I would move Aiden and Chris Paul if I'm Phoenix, and you're gonna have to move Chris Paul before June because his contract, as of right now, only part of his contract will be guaranteed for next year. So he's scheduled to make 30 million, but that as of right now, only 15 million that is guaranteed. Now, when I think June 30th comes, that will be when it's fully guaranteed. So if they're gonna move Chris Paul, they're gonna have to move him before that. Then he has some value because Chris Paul at $15 million, despite his age, with 1 year left, is actually probably worth taking a risk on. To be honest with you, it has some value. Chris Paul at 30 million, no, no one would want to even touch that, nor should they. I think DeAndre, you can get two decent rotation players for him, probably. I think he does still have. I think that he's still young, relatively young. The contract is not terrible considering that these contracts are about to go up anyway with this new television money that's coming. So once that new television money comes in, certain contracts are not going to look as bad as they look right now. Just similar to just like Jordan Poole's contract would not look as bad as it looks. Um, come the next you know come the next television deal. But Phoenix is a mess right now. I mean, Kevin Durant's not getting any younger. You have one piece that you have one, diamond, and that's of course Devin Booker. But you don't have much else after that. And you traded all your assets to get Kevin Durant. As far as Golden State goes, I think Golden State is probably is in more clearly in more in superior shape than what Phoenix is, but they of course have their have decisions to make of their own as far as what they need to do with that roster. I think Golden State, Jordan Poole, you can move Jordan Poole. I think they will probably resign Clay and Draymond at reasonable deals. I don't think they're gonna get big. I don't think either one of those guys is getting big money. Especially Clay. Clay is eligible for extension, 4 years, $200 million. He will not. They will not. He will not sniff that. I don't feel. I don't think. And I think if you're Golden State, similar to Phoenix, you have a player for different reasons that you just absolutely cannot bring back, and that's Jordan Poole. Jordan Poole last year in the postseason was 17 points on 50% shooting, and had a number of games, and he was inconsistent at times, but had a number of games. He had a couple games where he was the difference in those games. This year, Jordan Poole was 10 points a game on about 34% shooting. So was not the same, was nowhere near the same player that he was in the postseason last year. And again, it doesn't help when you get punched in the face on during training camp and in essence knocked out. They, as a team, he as a player, never recovered from that. They handled it poorly didn't give Draymond Green any type of punishment. He still was allowed to do a ring ceremony. He apologized for it, but there was no recovering from that. I don't care what anybody says. That situation was never rectified. And again, you ideally Jordan Poole still a very young player, like similar to DeAndre Ayton, but but similar to DeAndre Ayton, I don't think either one of those players are fixable in their current situations. I don't think Jordan Poole is fixable in Golden State. I could see Jordan Poole going on another team and averaging 20, 25 points a game. He is a pure scorer. He can get buckets. Now, he can average that, and the team is not going to win. He's not a number one or two, he's not a number one or two on a team that can win a championship. Maybe he could develop into a number 3 or 4, but he can score. That's one thing he can do is score. And again, I don't think his contract is that bad considering the fact that he can score, considering the fact of how young he is. So I still think I do think that they will have to move him and to try to get some, maybe try to get some added depth for him or even a draft pick. But Jordan Poole has to go. Like I mean, he absolutely has to go for them to move forward. He cannot, you cannot have him. That situation is that situation is done. It is. It's that situation is like that whole dynamic in that locker room. I don't care what anybody says. They're gonna side with Draymond Green because Draymond Green has won championships with him. Nobody's gonna like nobody in that locker room. No one who means anything or who matters in that situation in that locker room is gonna point the finger at Draymond Green. It's just not gonna happen versus Jordan Poole. Even though Jordan Poole was in that with that situation was the victim. He got punched in the he got knocked out and punched in the face. And Draymond was clearly wrong. But he like you can't have him back on the team next year. Um I'm not willing to say Golden State. Golden State still has Steph Curry. Steph Curry is still one of the top 5 players in the league. Um, even at the age of 35, I think he's never been better, to be honest with you, as far as what he could do, all of his all around skill and still shoot the ball at a high level. So I like Steph Curry is still Steph Curry. Um, and Klay Thompson, regular season, and I know Klay was awful, especially in this playoff series against the Lakers. He was horrible, 3 for 19 in that game 6. But Klay still was 21 points and 40% on 3-point shooting this year. The thing about Klay Thompson is he's no longer the dude who, if he's not making shots, then you can't have him on the court in certain situations. And they're gonna have to add some pieces to where you can afford to take Klay off the court if he's not making shots. This year, Steve Kerr did not have that luxury. And that's where player development is going to have to come in for Golden State because there's no reason whatsoever why Jonathan Kuminga should not be playing playoff minutes at this stage in his career right now. Like that guy has far too much talent, and for what he can do is tailor made for today's NBA as an athletic, 6'7" guy can defend, block shots, not polished yet offensively, but there's no they have completely dropped the ball on him as far as his development. He should be getting playoff minutes he should have been able to contribute in this series. Like that. So they to me, uh the biggest move they're gonna do, the most important part of their offseason could be his development. Jonathan Kuminga. Kuminga should be able to get minutes. He should be a guy next year that, in essence, should be anywhere from 15 to 17 points in the regular season, take pressure off Klay, Draymond, and some of the older players, and in the postseason get legitimate postseason minutes to where he can fill in that offensive load for for when they replace Jordan Poole, if and when they replace Jordan Poole. So again, two teams that are kind of at a crossroads. Even Golden State, not Bob Myers might not even be back, so that would be a major loss. Phoenix again, don't have expectations for Phoenix. Phoenix is up six. They are up Shit's Creek without a paddle. They're in a lot of trouble as a franchise. So this morning, amongst you wake up and you see a ESPN alert, and I got it, the ESPN app, and lo and behold, Ja Morant is on another Instagram posting with a gun. Again, I don't know how old this video is when it came out. The bottom line is he's on a was on a video with a gun in his hand once again. Um, Now come come tomorrow, you're gonna hear the same shit. Everything that John Morant has to lose in regards to this, his shoe contracts, uh, his endorsements. You're gonna hear all that bullshit. and all that could be true. That is missing. People are missing the forest from the trees. I don't care about the money that John Morant could lose in this situation. What I care about is John Morant, the human being, and where is like how much has to be taken from him in order for him to wake up and turn his life around. So the first thing, he goes through the situation a couple months ago in March with the at the strip club with the gun. He gets suspended for, in essence, 8 games. He gets publicly embarrassed, goes through this fake rehab, does the apology on ESPN or ABC with Jalen Rose. So that all was for that was all some on the surface bullshit. Just going through the regular. All right, just to say that, hey, I get it now, and so on and so on. Even in the press conference after they were eliminated by the Lakers, my actions contribute to us losing. Cool. And no shit. That's minuscule, right? That's minuscule. You still have millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars in the bank. You're still John Morant. You're still the face of the franchise, and so on and so on. I fear, and I hope I'm wrong, that in order for John Morant to turn this thing around and turn his life around, that he's going to probably have to hit rock bottom. When I mean turn his life around, I'm not even talking basketball. I'm talking about turn his life around. That's what I fear. And I don't. Again, you're gonna hear this tomorrow, and I saw this on Twitter about trying to basically conflate the gun issue with his punishment and so on and so on. I listen. This is not a John Moran having a gun. This is not a gun issue per se. This is not about gun laws. It's not about Second Amendment rights and right to bear arms. It's not, I've heard all types of shit like, oh, he's not dangerous. I heard saw one thing. Well, him waving a gun is not irresponsible. That's what I heard on the internet. You see a lot on the internet. I saw on Twitter. Him waving a gun in a video is not irresponsible. Okay, and it actually is not a threat to anybody. Cool. It's not a threat to anybody. I don't. Do I fear John Morant? Do I fear John Morant because he's holding a gun in a video? No. Do I think John Morant is a threat to society because he's holding a gun in a Instagram live video? No, that's not the point. John Morant is a threat to himself right now. He is his own worst enemy right now. And I keep hearing also, the people that he surrounded himself with, that he has to move different from that standpoint. Sure. If I'm not so sure it would change if he was by himself. Right now, John Morant's biggest enemy is John Morant. Like no one's making John Morant do this. Like it's not him trying to be with the in crowd. He is making these decisions. That's the scary part about it. Like he's like this is him. Like he's steering this shit. So again, I don't. I'm not. Please, let's not get sidetracked with his contracts, his endorsements, and also the gun issue. In terms of let's not make this about right to bear arms. I don't want to hear that shit. Those are two separate issues. The issue here is you have a 23-year-old young man who, frankly, is lost right now. He's lost. There's all there is to it. He's lost. And again, I can't sit and tell you, I don't know what the solution is, what will turn around John Brand's life, what is going like how John Moran's going to the light bulb, when the light bulb is gonna turn on in terms of, hey, I need to change my ways. But I do fear that he's going to have to lose everything in order to turn this around. And that doesn't even guarantee anything. That doesn't guarantee he turns it around. But I fear that he's going to have to lose. That's my biggest fear of when it comes to John Morant. As far as his suspension goes, I listen. I think you heard you heard some of the personalities on television. You heard some people already talking possibly in terms of guessing that it could be a 20-25 game suspension. Uh, is important. I like that. That's a big deal, but it's not a big deal. Like I don't even think the suspension would would wake him up. I don't even think a 20 to 25 game suspension will wake him up, to be honest with you. Now, I expect that the NBA will hit him hard with a suspension to start off the season. I do expect it to be double digits. I don't know if it's going to quite reach 20 or 25 games. I would guess probably maybe in that 10 to 15 range. Because remember, this still is a players' league. And there's still something like the NBA Players Association is relatively, as in comparison to the NFL Players Association, does have some pull and has some power, and they have so from that standpoint. So yeah, he's going to get suspended, but that's neither here nor there. The point is, there's a lot of time between now and next season. You have a summer. We're approaching summer. Like, what's next? Like, what in terms of John Morant? Like, what is next? What is he going to do? What is he going to do next? That puts himself in a compromising position. Because just doesn't seem like it's just this is going to stop. So again, you're gonna hear a lot about the gun thing as far as you're gonna hear this turn into a gun argument in terms of from that standpoint. You're gonna hear endorsements. Fuck all that. I don't care about the gun part of it. I don't care about him with I don't care about the amount of endorsements that he can lose. What I care about is John Morant. That's what I care. That's what I care about, and him turning around his life. I've already discussed Monty Williams being out. Um, Again, Monty Williams will have his pick of a job. Like he Milwaukee, where I don't see him being going to Toronto. I think Monty's at a level to where he can basically like if it's like Milwaukee, I'm sure if Philly gets rid of Doc, that and keeps him beat, that may attract him. But he's going to have his pick if he wants. If he wants, he may even should choose to sit out a year. But he's going to have his pick at what job he wants. There's no question about it. So be very interesting to see what happens with that. Um, so I mean, listen, the bottom line is like outside the NFL, has been a devaluing of the coach manager in terms of hockey, football, hockey, baseball, basketball. It does not mean what it used to mean to be a head coach or a manager. It just doesn't in those particular sports. You see it in baseball all the time. It's all about the analytics. You got general managers in essence calling shots and telling the manager what to do from a standpoint of who he should play or what type of style philosophy that the team should have. And in basketball again, analytics and new ownership and what have you. And these coaches, even if you're winning championships, I mean, think about it. Think about who's been let go over the last couple of weeks. Nick Nurse, championship coach. Mike Budenholzer, championship coach. Monty Williams was in the finals, 2-time coach of the year. So the accolades just that doesn't matter anymore. Like this has become such a players league that the players are like again the players are dictating the players and owners are dictating all the moves at this point. The players and owners. So it's like you're a coach, you know, keep your resume ready. And nothing that none of these moves surprise me anymore. When a coach gets let go, especially in the NBA, it just doesn't. It's not. You shouldn't be surprised. Even a coach that's winning basketball games. So this is not just about. It's not just about winning anymore. Unless your name is Popovich, Spoelstra, uh, you like there's no job that's safe. You don't have to say like unless you're one of those two coaches, anybody can get it. Anybody can go. There are two guys who are safe. It's Eric Spoelstra and Greg Popovich. That's it. Those are the only two coaches right now that have complete job security. That's going to wrap it up for this latest edition of the Real Deal podcast. We will be back in a couple of days as we look. We will be looking at game ones of the Eastern and Western Conference Finals. I will see you soon. So long.